Good morning, Word Girls. I'm going to share a little story with you today. It's going to be longer than my normal videos. It's kind of a little testimony. As I was reading in the scriptures last night in Matthew chapter 2, verse 18, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they were not. And it reminded me of several years ago. Where God so ministered to my heart, and I just ended up rereading that section of scripture in Jeremiah and just bawled my eyes out because of how good he is and how faithful he is. And so I just wanted to share. It's a really long story, but I'm going to just try to share it as briefly as I can. Several years before this happened, in 2000 I believe it was, 16 years ago, we have since after our third child and after we got saved during the pregnancy of our fourth child, we felt very convicted to trust God with our family size, meaning we wouldn't use birth control, we wouldn't limit the blessings that he wanted to give to us. And that is a crazy journey in and of itself, but as some of you know, I have 6 babies in heaven, and I've given birth to 9 children here on earth. And so there was one year that I lost a baby at 17 weeks. I believe that was 99. And that was I think it was my third baby that I had lost. So I lost the baby. We went for an ultrasound to hear the heartbeat, and there was no heartbeat at 17 weeks. And of course, that was quite devastating. But, the Lord got us through that. And it was just a real struggle, though, to be honest with you, to not be frustrated, because here we are trusting him. And I remember saying, I'm trusting you. Why am I losing babies? And but we got through that. But I do remember saying one day in the car, and I know exactly where I was driving, and I said, I can't go through this again, God. This is just too painful. I can't go through this again. And I felt in my spirit, yes, you can. And 1 year later to that date, I was 17 weeks pregnant, and we went for an ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat again. And that kind of broke me. That was like more than I could take in that moment. It was very, very, very hard. And when I read that verse about Rachel, it struck me because that was me. I refused to be comforted. I remember very specifically Brian trying to comfort me, trying to pull me out of it, trying to pray for me, and I was just so upset. And I pictured myself at this crossroad on a sidewalk, and I was done. I was done with trusting God, because I felt like I couldn't trust him. And I pictured myself walking the other way on the sidewalk. And I was just so angry and so hurt. And there was a dear friend of mine who had a bunch of little kids and didn't feel like she did much for God. And there's this one specific night that I remember lying in bed and rolling away from Brian and him trying to comfort me, and me just leave me alone, I'm fine. And all he could do was pray for me, put his hand on my back, and he prayed for me, and he rolled over and went to sleep. And I just cried and cried. And probably around 11:30 or midnight, a great peace came over me, and I started singing this song. I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was about how God looked for me in the garden. He was singing over me, telling me how much he loved me. And I fell asleep to that song. Well, come to find out that this dear friend who had a bunch of little kids and doesn't feel like she, did anything for God, was on her kitchen floor praying for me at that exact hour, and just travailing for me, an experience that she had never had before. And something broke in the spirit realm, and she went to sleep. And I believe that was the exact time that it broke for me. And I heard his voice singing over me, and I was able to fall asleep. And the next morning was Valentine's Day, and it's kind of interesting that this is February. Didn't think of that. It was Valentine's Day, and I usually had my quiet time out in front of the fireplace, and Brian made me a fire and pulled my chair up close to the fireplace, and I think he made my tea and lit a candle, and I felt like he was just like, here you go, I'm going to set you in front of God and let him deal with you. And I opened up the word, and I opened it up to Jeremiah, and read that verse about Rachel, about how she wouldn't be comforted. But then verse 16 popped off the page to me, and I've had this other times too, where his word just goes right into your heart and heals what you can't think away or what you can't make happen. And it was verse 16, thus saith the Lord, refrain thy voice from weeping and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. And they shall come again from the land of the enemy. And there is hope in thine end, saith the Lord, that thy children shall come again to their own border. And I felt so clearly God telling me to stop, to refrain from my eyes from crying, that he had a plan and that I could trust him. And I journaled and I read through the rest of Jeremiah, and it was just beautiful. And I just wept before him because he was healing my heart in that moment. All of the pain, all of the anger was washed away as I read his word. And I remember later that day, I was sitting at the countertop and I was making out a grocery list, and I just felt his spirit rise up in me, and I sat down at the computer and I just started typing what I felt like what he was saying to my heart. And I typed, you will have another child. And I stopped and I thought, oh God, that's my mind. Don't let that just be my mind playing with me. I can't handle being disappointed again. I don't want to believe that this is you if this is just my mind saying that. And I felt like you will have another child is what he was saying to me. And so I typed it up, printed it up, and tucked it away. And a year later, was pregnant and due around Valentine's Day, actually. And so I thought I would have that baby on Valentine's Day, and that whole pregnancy was another testimony in and of itself. The fear where the enemy came in, but that's another really cool story. But anyway, I believe I was due on Valentine's Day, which I thought would be so appropriate, because how cool is that, to deliver the baby on the day that God healed my heart. And well, Valentine's Day came and went, and I was getting kind of frustrated. And let me back up a minute. The baby that I was just talking about, where God healed my heart from the reading in Jeremiah, I still had that baby inside me, and we waited and had a couple more ultrasounds to make sure, and then the induced labor, and I delivered a teeny tiny, perfectly formed little boy that we named Ephraim. But anyway, so I was frustrated. Now, fast forward again to a year later, frustrated because I wasn't having this baby on Valentine's Day, and the days were ticking away. And I ended up having that precious baby girl, Sarah Grace, on February 22nd. And she was perfect little baby girl. And I don't know, it was sometime later that I had, in a file drawer, had come across the little certificate that they gave me when I delivered that little baby boy. And they had his little footprints and a little teeny hat and a gown that they had put on him, and took a picture that I hadn't seen yet. I delivered him on February 22nd, and exactly 1 year later to the day, I delivered my Sarah Grace that I got to take home with me. And so he kept his promise. I got to have another baby, and a few more after that. And I delivered her on the very day that I had delivered the one that we had lost. And so I tell you this because he's so good, ladies. He knows exactly what he's doing, and we can trust him. And he's so faithful. And it was just another example of how awesome his word is, and how it goes in and it heals our hearts and it comforts us. And I was reading in Matthew, 1, 2, and 3 today, and seeing all the turns that God had Mary and Joseph take, and how he directed them and protected them. And I just think of our own lives and how there's all these twists and turns that we didn't expect. It's not how we thought it was going to go, but he knows. Okay, he knows what's best for us. And I have my awesome Sarah Grace, who actually made our little printout for us for this month. She's going to be 16 this month, and God is faithful, ladies, okay? Whatever it is. Maybe you're at the beginning of that struggle right now where you just don't know if you can go on anymore. You can't take it anymore. Let me tell you, 16 years later, you will be so thankful for it. I remember when we were in the hospital delivering that baby boy, my heart was so healed. We ministered to the nurse. You know, she was trying to comfort us because, here I had lost a baby, but we were so fine. And I remember telling her, no, I'm okay. Really, I'm okay. My heart is healed. And we ended up buying her flowers and praying with her before we left. She had some issues with an older child, and so we ministered to her. We were on the floor, a labor and delivery floor, where other women were mourning the losses of their babies, and I could hear the crying, and I wanted to go to them. I wanted to go and pray for them, and I couldn't because I was in the middle of my own labor and she wouldn't let me go. But it just shows you how completely God can heal our hearts. And one other thing too is when we delivered that baby, the nurse kept saying, oh, I'm so sorry, honey, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it's fine. And I'm telling you, ladies, you could feel it. You could feel his grace in that room. It was like there was just something so thick in that room. And it was his grace and his mercy and his love. And I think back to when I said, I can't do this again. And I thought in that moment, I would do it all again, God. I would do it all again to experience your grace in this way, to experience your word in this way, to experience your healing in this way. So I just wanted to share that with you. He's so faithful and he loves you so much. Okay, thanks for listening.